Welcome back here to Fox and Friends. This is an absolutely fascinating segment. We've heard the theories surrounding JFK's assassination, but did you know that a mafia godfather actually confessed to the murder? And did you know that there were two unsuccessful assassination attempts just a few weeks before JFK was killed in Dallas? Lamar Waldron uncovers these incredible facts and so much more in his new book, Legacy of Secrecy, and he joins us this morning from Atlanta. Lamar, thanks for joining us this morning. I appreciate it.
Great to be here, Clayton.
Okay, so let's start with the mafia confession, because this is the big story that just blew me away, actually. There was an uncensored confession of the godfather, Carlos Marcello. He revealed for the first time that he actually arranged and called for the assassination, and he later was telling lawyers this. Is this case closed now? Do we now can say conclusively the mafia ordered the hit on JFK?
Well, according to the FBI files at the National Archives, that appears to be the case. And I was able to find those files with the help of more than 24 people who had worked with John and Robert Kennedy. And the files are just as clear as can be. The FBI files actually quote the godfather of Louisiana and Texas, Carlos Marcello, is saying, and I'll clean it up, yeah, I had the SOB killed, speaking of JFK.
Right.
And Marcello says that he was glad he did it and he wishes he could have done it himself. Marcello went on to say that Jack Ruby was his man, the payoff man for the Dallas police, met with Ruby regularly. Marcello even admitted meeting Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination. So, and these documents,
a big web.
these FBI documents,
It turns to me, as I was reading the book, it becomes this big web. In fact, what shocked me more than anything, I must admit, Lamar, is these early attempts on JFK's life before he was assassinated. Let's go through these, because this just blew me away, too. Two previous assassination attempts. The first was in Chicago 3 weeks before, and then the second was in Tampa 4 days before he was assassinated. Tell us about this.
Well, and that's because the Kennedys were waging a huge war against the mafia, and they particularly targeted the Chicago mafia family, the mafia family in Tampa, and Marcello, he was the godfather for Louisiana and Texas. So 3 weeks before Dallas, they tried to kill JFK in Chicago. JFK had to cancel the entire motorcade on just minutes' notice, didn't even go to Chicago. They just canceled the entire motorcade because there was too much risk. In Tampa, Florida, 4 days before Dallas, huge motorcade. JFK was again warned that the police and Secret Service had found out about an attempt on his life, but this time he could not cancel the motorcade. And that's because that night in Miami, he had to give a speech with special lines written for his ally high in the Cuban government, the #3 man in the Cuban government, the head of the Cuban army. And that's because JFK was getting ready to overthrow Fidel Castro just 10 days after Dallas.
Right, so everyone wondering
JFK
themselves,
was waging both the...
I mean, what struck me about this, because there's this overarching umbrella to this whole thing, isn't there, Lamar, which is that a week after Kennedy was assassinated, December 1st, he was about to help launch this coup inside of Cuba. And that's why all of these things we haven't heard about, right?
Right, because this was just 1 year after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we all almost got blown up. And it could have been World War III if all this had come out. So the Kennedys were waging a very public war against the mafia, a very secret war against Fidel Castro. The mafia had been banned from the coup plan, banned from reopening their casinos, but Carlos Marcello and his associates in the Chicago Mafia and the Tampa Godfather, they were able to infiltrate this top secret plan and use parts of this very, very secret plan to kill JFK in a way that forced Robert Kennedy to work with people like J. Edgar Hoover and the new President Lyndon Johnson to cover up a lot of information, not to protect Carlos Marcello and the other mob bosses who killed JFK, but to prevent World War III and to protect Commander Almeida, the #3 man in Cuba in 1963, and get this, the #3 man in Cuba today.
It's still amazing that he's still in power in Cuba today. Lamar Waldron, it's a fascinating book. It is 800 pages, but I'm telling you, everyone was making fun of me because I said it was a page-turner. It is a page-turner. Lamar Waldron, the book is absolutely fascinating. Legacy of Secrecy. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, and people can read excerpts and see a lot of these documents if they go to legacyofsecrecy.com.
Great. Thanks, Lamar.